No, I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Thank you. We now proceed to the next bill.
Building Societies Act 1986, Amendment Bill not amended in committee to be considered.
We begin with Amendment 2, with which it will be convenient to consider Amendment 1. Julie Elliott.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. And it is the strange nature of this place, the variety of bills. We've gone from the warm and fluffy bill that we've just heard, that I'm delighted has gone through its third reading, to rather a dry bill, I have to say, but very important one nonetheless. So I beg to move the Amendment 2 tabled in my name. This amendment changes the procedure that applies to a statutory instrument relating to subsection 9b so that it is subject to the affirmative procedure rather than the negative procedure that was in the bill previously. This is after talking to colleagues on both sides of the House and on reflection, this amendment does provide for closer scrutiny of potential changes this bill could make through secondary legislation. And so that is why I have decided to table this amendment. It does not change the immensely positive effect, I believe, that the bill will have on the building society sector, bringing it into more current practices, and also it does not change the bill's aims that, in my view, will enormously improve the opportunities for people getting on the housing ladder. So a better landscape for first-time buyers will be the result of this bill, in my view, and this amendment just improves scrutiny. Thank you.
The question is that the amendment be made. Sir Christopher Chope.
Madam Deputy Speaker, can I say that I rise to support very much the amendment in the Honourable Lady's name, and I'm grateful to her for effectively taking forward my amendment number 1, which we were told was defective because although it achieves exactly the same purpose, it is not in the normal wording that government drafters would like. So after some discussions, it was agreed by the Honourable Lady and by the Government Minister that it was sensible to have an affirmative procedure in relation to these delegated powers, and that affirmative procedure is now reflected in Amendment number 2. It could have been reflected in Amendment number 1, but what's important is the substance of the matter, and I think that these are potentially very significant changes which could be made, and it's important that if they are to be made, then they're open to proper scrutiny, because as we know, the negative procedure resolution doesn't really enable proper scrutiny. And as an example of that, Madam Deputy Speaker, you will recall that we had legislation brought forward at the end of last year dealing with the extension to the breeds covered by the dangerous dogs legislation to include XL dogs of the XL bully type. I put down a statutory statutory instrument to try and amend that in the form of an early day motion. The early day motion was still on the order paper, but it was never accepted or debated, and that meant that that change was made, affecting hundreds of thousands of dogs and our owners. It was made without any proper scrutiny in Parliament, and that's why it's important, where possible, to have the affirmative resolution. And I'm very grateful to the Honourable Lady for having brought forward this amendment, which I support.
Excellent. Shadow Minister? No? No? No more takers. Excellent. The question is that the amendment be made. As many as that opinion say aye. Aye. Of the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Amendment 1 is not selected for separate decision, and therefore consideration is completed. Third reading, what day? The question is that the bill be now read the third time. Julie Elliott.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. And I beg to move that this bill be now read a third time. It is a pleasure to bring this bill back for further debate as it is now in an amended form. It is a key moment for an important bill for the building society sector, and I must thank all colleagues who have taken part in this process going through the various stages from all sides of the House who have been so supportive of this bill. I'm going to keep my remarks short so that if other members wish to speak, they can, and to try and make sure that the progress of this bill is as smooth as possible. The Building Societies Act 1986 Amendment Bill will help level the playing field between building societies and banks, and it will support building societies in being able to lend more money in a safe and secure way. To trade as a building society, the 1986 Act requires the company to obtain a minimum of 50% of funding from their members, what is known as the wholesale funding limit. This bill does not change that, and it does not dilute the unique ownership of model of building societies. The fundamental nature of a building society being run in the interests of its members does not change through this bill. In fact, it is what makes this sector so special. What this bill does is disregard the following from the 50% wholesale funding limit: Bank of England liquidity insurance facilities, debt instruments raised to meet minimum regulatory requirement for own funds and eligible liabilities requirements, and sums received under sale and repurchase agreements with a view to complying with the Prudential Regulatory Authority rules. This means that in times of a national economic crisis, building societies have more options within their gift in order to remain comfortably solvent and therefore continue to serve in their members' interests. The bill is designed to allow future governments to respond to the financial landscape of the day, and that is why the bill does not specifically define funds, but instead defers the specification of funds to later through secondary legislation in this House. All the responses from the sector to the government's consultation on this in advance of the Edinburgh reforms in 2021 were positive, and they are reforms that make the sector more robust. The bill also seeks to modernise the sector. It amends the 1986 Act to explicitly allow the option of real-time virtual member participation, bringing the sector in line with the requirements that the Companies Act 2006 requires of businesses. The bill also enables the Treasury to introduce more flexibility for societies in relation to common seals and the execution of documents in line with companies law. This bill is important because it seeks to achieve a lot in a very succinct manner, allowing the sector to operate on a more level playing field with banks. This is positive for a number of reasons, but especially considering the sector's support for first-time buyers. Over half of building society lending goes to first-time buyers, and since 2020, building societies in just my region, the North East and Cumbria, have lent some £3.4 billion to first-time buyers. The bill follows a number of previous private members' bills, including that of my honourable friend, the member for Preston, which received royal assent last year, that have continued to modernise the sector. I will not restate all of the facts that I presented in the second reading, as powerful as they are, but it is important to acknowledge that whilst the housing sector has recovered significantly since the record low mortgage approvals during the COVID pandemic and has recovered from the acute economic shock caused by the last Conservative administration, mortgage approvals at this current time are still below that which we saw before the pandemic. That is why I think a bill like this, which gives more choice to the building society sector to operate in the interests of their members, is a good thing. This sector has a very strong record, as I've outlined, in supporting first-time buyers, and the fact that for every £10 billion of lending could support an additional 20,000 mortgages, the potential of this bill to not just support the housing sector and the wider economy, but allow building societies to help more people on their journey to home ownership is something I am proud to be taking through this House. Having spoken to many constituents in Sunderland who are struggling to get on the housing ladder, young couples and families who just want the chance to have a place that is theirs, that they can feel comfortable in, away from a volatile and often unfair rental market. Although the government's failure to reform this sector is a debate to be had elsewhere on another day, I expect this bill to do more in supporting a sector that often goes above and beyond to support its members and to help people get on the housing ladder and secure a future for themselves. The passing of this bill would be a landmark moment for the sector, and I look forward to seeing the positive effects that the passing of this bill would bring. With leave of the House, I'd like to take this opportunity... Oh, sorry, apologies. Thank you.
That's the next bit. The question is that the bill be now read the third time. Peter Gibson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. May I begin by congratulating the Honourable Member for Sunderland Central for bringing forward this bill. Having brought forward a private member's bill myself, I know the joy, the ups and the downs of that process, and I congratulate her on bringing it this far. Madam Deputy Speaker, building societies are financial institutions with the principal purpose of making residential mortgages and are funded substantially by their members. I have seen firsthand how the membership system of building societies brings people together and gives many a shared sense of interest and purpose. Darlington is, it will come as no surprise, home to Darlington Building Society, which has been serving the people of Darlington and the surrounding area since 1856. Their commitment to our community is second to none. Indeed, only last night, Madam Deputy Speaker, at the Tees Business Awards, they walked away with the Community Champions Award, which recognises their contribution to our community. And whilst many high streets are seeing the loss of financial institutions, just a few months ago, alongside the Minister, who I'm pleased to see in his place, opened a new branch of Darlington Building Society on High Road. Darlington is also the birthplace of the railways. Bear with me here. And some years ago, Darlington Building Society commissioned a children's book by Peter Barron, the former editor of the Northern Echo, to tell the story of Darley the engine. Now, as we approach the 200th anniversary of the railways, a very big year for us, Darlington Building Society, in collaboration with West End composer Stuart Brayson and Darlington Operatic Society, are turning Darley into a musical which will premiere in September next year. Madam Deputy Speaker, I am proud to represent a town with such a strong track record of supporting our community. Now, turning to the bill, this bill is about putting building society, like Darlington's, on a more level playing field with banks in relation to their capital raising and corporate governance requirements, so that they can compete more effectively in the financial services sector and better support their members. It will help deliver key asks from the sector itself. I welcome the provisions in this bill, which largely mirror proposals the government consulted on during 2022, and I welcome that both the government and the building society sector are supporting it. Indeed, Andrew Craddock, the Chief Executive Officer of Darlington Building Society, has also voiced his support, stating, as I follow, Darlington Building Society supports the proposed reforms to the Building Societies Act. The modernisation will cut archaic red tape by removing outdated corporate governance requirements which building societies face, but banks do not. As a vital part of our financial framework, with a deep-rooted interest in communities like Darlington, I believe that this will help building societies to survive and thrive. It is right that we do all we can to ensure businesses flourish. So the cutting of red tape is welcome, as is the removing of outdated, bureaucratic governance systems not faced by the big banks. In conclusion, Madam Deputy Speaker, I welcome this bill as a way of ensuring that building societies are embraced and enabled to do business with less hurdles and red tape. It sorts out certain questions over funding and levels the playing field. I'm pleased to support the bill and trust that the House will give its full support today.
Ben Everitt.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and clearly every day is a school day. I've been delighted to learn about Darley the engine, and I'm equally excited about the forthcoming musical, so it's a pleasure to follow the Honourable Member for Darlington. I want to thank the Honourable Member for Sunderland Central for her efforts in getting this bill through its initial stages. It's a bill that we can all get behind because it benefits our constituents. I'm pleased to give it my backing today. At the back end of 2021, the government ran a consultation on amendments that could improve the Building Societies Act 1986, and the responses were pretty positive, and I'm glad that this bill reflects many of them today. Madam Deputy Speaker, building societies play a unique role in the UK economy, serving around 25 million people, going back nearly a quarter of a century, particularly from Darlington. In my constituency, in Only, I was very pleased to visit the nationwide branch late last year, and in particular to receive assurances that the branch is going to stay open, which I'm happy to place on the record here in this place, but more to see the impact that they have in the community, because it's more than just banking services. People go in there for a chat, but more than a chat. We have older members of our community going in there and having lessons on online banking, how to use an iPad, and receiving advice on countering fraud, either online or on the phone. So there's a real place within our communities for them. Being member-owned financial institutions, of course, they're known for delivering excellent services, but particularly around mortgage lending, and this is often to a high level of customer satisfaction. So for this reason, anything that we can do here in Parliament to ensure that they can remain competitive in the financial sector has to be a good thing, both for our economy and for our local communities. So what this bill will do, and rightly so, is put building societies on a more even keel with banks. In a broad sense, the bill is about levelling the playing field in the financial sector, helping building societies increase their lending capacity. And this, of course, can be hugely helpful to first-time buyers, getting more people on the housing ladder, something that, of course, across the House we can get behind. In Milton Keynes in particular, getting people on the property ladder is a real priority for me. It is incredibly frustrating that the average cost of a new build house in Milton Keynes is something like £475,000, whilst the average cost of any house sold in Milton Keynes last year was something like £335,000. So access to finance and anything we can do to support that is a key part of any solution. Building societies play such a role in mortgage lending services. According to the Building Societies Association, building societies are responsible for a third of first-time buyer mortgage completions. It stands to reason that if we can increase fundraising capacity for building societies, then we can get even more people on the housing ladder. As Clause 1 in this bill describes, these changes can get us there. Madam Deputy Speaker, once again, we have today another good example of cross-party collaboration, where colleagues on both sides of this House have come together in seeing the clear benefits of this bill. While we can, I'm sure from both personal experience and through engagement with our constituents, attest to the pivotal role building societies play in our communities, strengthening building societies is bound to have a positive economic consequence across the board. And I look forward to seeing this bill progress to becoming law.
Dr. Lisa Cameron.
Many thanks once again, Madam Deputy Speaker, and to place on record my thanks to the Honourable Member for Sunderland Central. Again, bringing forward what I see as a very pragmatic and important bill to the House that I give my full support to today. As always, she works very assiduously in making lives better for people across the United Kingdom and in her constituency, and works in an extremely positive manner cross-party in order to achieve her aims. So I thank her for that as well. Like others have mentioned, building societies are extremely important to the fabric of the financial institutions in our constituencies. I have regular visits to my building society in East Kilbride nationwide, and visited them just a few months ago, and was, as the Honourable Member for Milton Keynes was saying, I was also very well reassured that they had no plans to close, and in fact were thriving in the community, that many people were coming in to speak, to chat, for socialisation and reassurance regarding finance and debt, and how to engage with the new digital banking sector as well. And I think the reach out into the community is really second to none. I was very, very impressed by that, particularly as I've had terrible news from East Kilbride just this week that the Royal Bank of Scotland is closing its branch there, which follows on from the bad news I had just last month that Bank of Scotland are closing in Strathaven and Lesmahagow, leaving those communities without essential banking, and particularly as those in Lesmahagow and Strathaven are the last bank in those local communities. It's very, very distressing for those residents, and I'm very pleased to be able to raise their concerns today, but also to praise Nationwide for their assurance that they want to be at the heart of our community for the foreseeable future, and for the work that they are doing. Also because I think, and I have to sort of raise my personal interest here as well, it was my very first mortgage was with this building society, and I didn't know an awful lot about finance or mortgages at the time, but they took the time to go through the different options with me, and I felt very reassured by them and by the manager. And I think having that face-to-face contact is so important, as you say, as we say, for first-time buyers who perhaps are unassured of the steps to take in getting their first mortgage, but it's such a pivotal part of our life journey, isn't it, that these institutions play in our local communities. I also just wanted to place my thanks for the work that they're doing on mental health as well, because I'm part of the Money and Mental Health Institute that's chaired by Martin Lewis, and we know that there's a huge link between mental health and finance, and particularly debt is correlated by people's mental health spiralling downwards, and we need to really make sure that we address those issues as well through all of our banking institutions. I think, as has already been said, this is a very important bill. It places building societies on par with banks in terms of corporate governance, solvency, and will keep them very competitive and at the heart of our communities for the future. Thank you.
Shadow Minister Darren Jones.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I begin by congratulating my honourable friend, the member for Sunderland Central. Coming top of the private member's bill is, as we all know, sheer luck, but drafting a bill that generates strong cross-party support that becomes law is the result of tremendous hard work. This is a classic private member's bill that might, as my honourable friend suggested, look technical in nature, but which will make a huge difference to those people affected. This is also a bill that is true to Labour and cooperative values, and we in the Labour Party are delighted to support it. My honourable friend has worked painstakingly over many months to draft and develop this bill, engaging with Treasury civil servants and ministers. She has also worked closely with Labour's sister party, the Cooperative Party, and the wider mutual sector, including the Building Societies Association and Nationwide. We have heard excellent contributions today in the debate to highlight the importance of this sector and the positive impact this bill will have for communities and families, not least in the context of bank branch closures across the country. Building societies and mutuals have a long and proud tradition of supporting working people to access affordable finance. Today, the sector continues to play a crucial role in promoting financial responsibility and resilience among its members. Building societies also enable families to get on the housing ladder. They direct a significant proportion of their lending to first-time buyers, as we've heard today. This bill could unlock significant additional lending capacity from building societies, supporting more working people to become homeowners, not least in my own constituency of Bristol North West, where so many people are struggling to buy their first home. Since the bill first came before this House, my honourable friend, the member for Hampstead and Kilburn, launched the Labour Party's Financial Services Review. The landmark review outlines Labour's plan to work hand in hand with businesses and the financial services sector to drive economic prosperity. It also reaffirms the first priority of a Labour government, to provide a secure platform for growth which builds on the strengths of our economy and gives citizens across the UK financial stability. To deliver on those priorities, a key aspect of the review is Labour's commitment to aim to double the size of the cooperative and mutual financial services sector under the next Labour government. In helping to level the playing field between banks and building societies, this bill is an important step towards achieving that aim. And so, whilst we strongly welcome the measures in this bill, Labour believes further legislation is necessary to deliver on our ambitions and the benefits for communities across the country. That is why our review has set out measures which will help underpin rapid mutual financial services growth. These include new requirements on regulators and policymakers to properly consider the needs of mutuals and actively reduce barriers to their growth, to support credit unions to offer more products, and to strengthen the SME bank referral scheme to support businesses securing financial sources from cooperatives and mutuals. Together with the Cooperative Party and the wider cooperative and mutual sector, Labour's ambition is clear: to support the sector so that the vital contribution it makes to our economy can go further and drive much-needed growth in the future. Labour recognises this bill as an important step forward, and we are delighted to give it our full support today. May I once again congratulate my honourable friend, the member for Sunderland Central, for her excellent work. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker.
Minister Gareth Davies.
Madam Deputy Speaker, let me first congratulate the honourable member for Sunderland Central for reaching third reading and for introducing this important bill, which will help to ensure the future growth and success of the building society sector. She is a strong advocate for the building societies sector, introducing a bill which will help them to grow and compete with retail banks so that they can continue to provide vital diversity to the UK financial services sector. I also congratulate my honourable friends for East Kilbride and Milton Keynes, but especially my honourable friend for Darlington, who I was delighted to join back in November to open the Darlington Building Society in the middle of town. I know and saw from him and those employees just how impactful they are in his community, and I am sure that they will go from strength to strength.
Of course. I'm very grateful to the Minister for giving way. I wonder if the Minister, whilst he's on his feet, could outline to the House the gift that he received from Robin Blair, our veteran fruiterer and vegetable trader in our historic market hall, who joined him on that opening day.
Speaker, of all the things I was expecting an intervention to contain, it was not that, but I did enjoy the satsumas that were provided by the very nice gentleman who I understand is an institution in the town of Darlington. As I was saying, building societies are important to all of our communities, not least mine in Grantham and Bourne. I have the Nationwide Building Society, Nottingham Building Society, and the Melton Mowbray Building Society in Grantham, but also now in Bourne, thanks to a new branch opening in April. Madam Deputy Speaker, today I wish to outline a few things. First of all, the government's support for the mutuals sector. Secondly, the vital importance of mutuals to our overall financial services sector. And finally, how this bill will further support the future growth and success of mutuals. Madam Deputy Speaker, the government wants to promote the growth of mutuals, which make a vital contribution to our UK economy. As outlined in the Mutuals Prospectus, there are over 9,000 mutuals operating throughout the country with a combined annual turnover of some £88 billion in 2022. That equates to some 3.5% of UK GDP. However, beyond their vital financial contribution to the UK economy, mutuals play an important role in supporting people across the country. Their unique ownership model means that these businesses are rooted within their local communities, working to make society better. It's for these reasons that the government is committed to supporting the growth and success of the mutual sector. For example, last summer, the government amended the Credit Unions Act of 1979 so that credit unions in Great Britain can offer a greater range of products and services. Moreover, last year, the government supported the Honourable Member for Preston's Private Members Bill, as the Honourable Lady referred to, which achieved royal assent in June 2023. This Act will allow Treasury to pursue further secondary legislation to give cooperatives, mutual insurers and friendly societies greater flexibility in deciding what to do with their surplus capital and the restrictions on their assets. The government continues to develop a modern and supportive business environment for mutuals. As part of this, it has asked the Law Commission to conduct reviews of the Cooperative and Community Benefit Societies Act of 2014 and the Friendly Societies Act of 1992. Madam Deputy Speaker, building societies are perhaps one of the most well-known types of mutual. There are currently 42 building societies operating throughout the country, providing mortgage and savings products to around 26 million members. They play an essential role in supporting their members in building savings habits and buying their own homes, as the Honourable Gentleman for the Opposition outlined, a cause I know that is shared across the House, but particularly by the Honourable Lady for Sunderland Central, who has championed consistently the importance of supporting first-time buyers, not just in her constituency, but across the country. I also know that building societies are especially well represented in communities outside of the South East. For example, Melton Mowbray Building Society provides vital support in all of my neighbouring areas of my constituency, as I was outlining their particular role in my specific constituency. And I note that the Honourable Lady for Sunderland also has the Newcastle Building Society, which has a significant presence in her constituencies. This is an organisation that builds on a history of 160 years and an amazing commitment to their members, and their community, the communities in which they operate in, remain strong. I know that in her constituency, the Newcastle Building Society has partnered with the Citizens Advice Fund to specifically fund full-time advice to provide expert advice to members in answering questions on a variety of important issues. And she also has the Yorkshire Building Society, who have done some great work when it comes to financial literacy through their Money Minds programme. So it's clear that building societies contribute to the well-being of communities throughout our country, and the Honourable Lady's constituency and many of our constituencies. And the government is, of course, very fully supportive of this private members bill, which will help the sector to compete more effectively with retail banks so that they can continue to work. Now, this bill is about enabling building societies to be better able to grow and compete with retail banks. We're achieving this by updating the legislation in three short ways. The first, the bill excludes three specified sources of funding from the 50% wholesale funding limit for building societies. This will provide them with greater flexibility in raising additional wholesale funding while still operating within the mutual model. The detail of these funds will be further specified by the Treasury through secondary legislation in due course. Furthermore, the Honourable Member for Sunderland Central's amendment to the bill means that these statutory instruments will be subject to the affirmative procedure, allowing for greater parliamentary scrutiny, and is on the back of some very constructive work from across this House. This amendment does not change the policy outcome of this bill in any way, but simply amends the parliamentary procedure to be followed in making these subsequent regulations. Secondly, the bill allows for the option of real-time virtual participation at building society meetings. This will improve meeting accessibility and promote wider membership engagement, should the members of any building society choose to permit this under their own rules. And finally, this bill will provide His Majesty's Treasury with the power to further align constitutional provisions. Specifically, it will align provisions in Part 2 of the 1986 Building Societies Act in relation to common seals and the execution of documents with modifications made to company law. This will remove outdated and burdensome legislative requirements, updating the Building Societies Act of 1986 in line with modernisations made to companies law. So, Mr. Deputy Speaker, let me conclude by saying that the government does fully support the Honourable Lady for Sunderland Central's bill. It recognises the importance of the building society sector in supporting people and local communities across this country. I extend my thanks, of course, to the Honourable Lady for Sunderland Central for introducing this bill and for progressing it to third reading. You can be assured that this government shares the vision set out in this bill to support the future growth and prosperity of the buildings sector.
Will leave the House. Julie Elliott will wind up the debate.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. And with leave of the House, I would like to take this opportunity to thank all those members who have contributed at the various stages during the bill. I think at the second reading, the political history lesson we had from both sides was not what I expected, but quite entertaining, I think. And I think it's really an honour to have a debate on a bill where everybody agrees and everybody can see the very, very tangible benefits it will make to all of our constituents as it progresses. It's taken a lot of work from a lot of people to get to this point. I want to not only thank colleagues who have taken part at every stage, but also the Treasury officials who have been extremely helpful, the clerks whose advice, support and guidance is, as always in this place, invaluable, the whips, the Building Societies Association and our sister party, the Cooperative Party, who have all contributed and helped advise and support as I have taken this bill through the House. I commend this bill to the House. Thank you.
The question is that the bill be now read the third time. As many of that opinion say aye. Aye. Contrary, no. The ayes have it.
Zoological Society of London.